I've always been this person who's like, I get the best sound if I use a dynamic mic, but I don't know what a sound engineer is going to say. When do we use a condenser? When do we use a dynamic? Michael, take it away.
So the terms dynamic and condenser have to do with how the microphone records sound. There are two different components used, or two different ways to record sound. So that's why there's two different terms. So they record very differently, but to say one is better than the other, that it's, you really can't think of it that way. They operate on two separate principles. Now, for what we need it for as podcasters, the conventional wisdom tells you that you use a dynamic mic depending on the room that you're in, or you use a condenser microphone depending on the room. If you have an acoustically treated room, or even a acoustically dead room where there's not a lot of reverb, there's not a lot of reflections, then you would use a condenser mic. Or you can use a condenser mic because the room's treated. If it's not treated, then I wouldn't use a condenser mic, because you're correct. They are very sensitive. They capture more information than a dynamic mic. Then they capture more information than a dynamic mic. So 9 times out of 10, I would suggest using a dynamic because people don't have treated rooms. It's going to sound, again, speech intelligibility is paramount here. So because of that, we want to use a mic that is matched well with the room. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be dynamic. So, like I suggested before, go on YouTube, do research, and just learn the basics. Watch a video, telling you how they're made and how they reproduce and capture sound. I mean, it's going to be beneficial. But, 9 times, if I have a gun to my head and I have to give you an answer, I would probably say for most people, use a dynamic mic because it's going to be less work in post to make it sound good.
What kind of mic are you using right now? Is it dynamic or condenser?
No, I'm using a condenser shotgun mic, shotgun mic is a completely different type of mic that's used in film and TV. But since I know how to use it, I wanted to use it, and I just wanted to use a fancy mic for today's recording. But it is a condenser, and that's because I'm in a room that's very dead acoustically. I have carpet floors. I'm sitting next to a bed that has a lot of, bedding on it, material that absorbs sound, and it's a really small room. So there's not a lot of reflections in here. So I can use this. Had I been recording this in my kitchen where there's granite everywhere and it's a big room, I would not use this. I would use a dynamic mic, something like a Shure 58.
Okay, cool. And so when does somebody who's listening say, I want to intentionally buy a condenser? And when does the condenser become better than the dynamic?
If I was going to do like some kind of narrative podcast, possibly, if I was going to, look at, some people don't mind the really intimate sound that condensers give you, because they do capture more information. Some people like to hear the lip smacks and the pops, like it brings you closer in some ways to the speaker. So if I'm trying to do some like really immersive, show where, I'm doing some kind of reporting or something, it might be appropriate for that. Or there's, like very specific types of recordings like ASMR. I know there's ASMR podcasts, like some people do that, where you're getting those really delicate sounds. Condensers are gonna, really give you what you want. And again, it really comes down to the environment. So if you have a treated room, use all the condensers you want,
Yeah. I had a treated room and I was using a condenser mic, but it still wasn't working very well. And it was because I was in a, my office is kind of like in a strip mall where my space was like a shared space, where my main office is my office. The bathroom was shared. The kitchen was shared. There was on one side of me, there's a massage therapist. She's usually pretty quiet. On the other side of me, there was a mental therapist. I can't think of the other way to say that, but a psychologist. And she was usually pretty quiet as well. But when people were going to the bathroom, which is right outside of my door, I would hear the doors opening and closing, even though my room had 1.5 inch thick egg carton on every wall in the corners of the ceiling. I had carpet, and I had treated the window as well. And it was a pretty dead room, but sounds came in through the hallway. And because of that, I kept getting those into my recording. And so I even opted to switch to the dynamic, and it ended up making my life much, much easier. I was never worried about sounds getting into the mic.
Yeah, a condenser is going to pick up all that, especially with the low frequencies. With rooms, low frequencies are going to come in all the time. Those are the hardest to keep out. So, people that are, look at, if you're building a recording studio, you build a room within a room. You don't just treat the walls. You literally build a room, and then you treat that room, and then build another room inside of it.
Yeah.
That's the lengths you have to go to.